Welcome back to another jazz drumming masterclass. I'm your host, Zac Treby from Zac Treby Drums, as usual. Let me get comfortable here. So let's get right into it. So today we're going to add some syncopated figures and triplets. Okay, some exercises as well for further facilitation of the drum set, right, in your jazz drumming. So now, when it comes to triplets, okay. Now, of course, being mindful of what's in the music, which is the most important, by the way, not what we think should be played, but what we hear in the music, what we've heard other jazz drummers do, and that's a good direction. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few exercises today that'll help you in your I'm just going to fix my microphone a little bit, in your quest for jazz drumming and jazz vocabulary. So here we go. Let's get into it. I'm just going to mess with my microphone for a little while. Doesn't really matter. The first thing I want to start with, right, is stuff that I hear in the music. And one of the figures, right, is a triplet pattern. Okay, we covered upbeats and everything. Now I want to cover some triplet stuff. And we're going to get to some other syncopated figures later that are also in the music, of course. But right now I want to deal with triplets, all right? What you do is when you hear a specific figure in the music, you take that little figure and you drill it, okay? One of the figures I want to show you right now is snare, snare, kick, okay? And in triplets, that's it sounds like this. All right. Now, if you're a straight beginner, you can do quarter notes. Right? And if the hi-hat's too hard, you take it away. Right? And of course, you can slow it down if you want. Obviously, at a faster tempo, it would sound like this. Okay, so you drill it, right, for a little while until you get comfortable. Then, in relation, or I should say, in addition to the upbeat comping that we did in the last masterclass, you want to throw those in when you're comfortable. So, this is what it would sound like if I was improvising. So you get it now, all right? Our mission here is to grab more jazz vocabulary in the drumming department here, right? And throw it into our comping or our improvising, and that's how you do it, all right? Triplets should be used sparingly depending on, what the soloist is doing. Musically, what's going on. That's your direction and that's your gauge, right? I was watching the live streams that Smalls Jazz Club plays the other night, and I saw this jazz drummer, and he constantly did triplets on the snare drum, right? I swear this was like every 10 seconds, right? I would hear. I swear, every 10 seconds he just kept going, and it drove me crazy because I'm like, don't you have any other vocabulary? And because you just listen to the soloist, and now, of course, depending on the soloist, I get it, maybe that's all he had, but we wanna. I'm not judging because but we want to listen to the music, not play what we think we should all the time, okay? Because if we did, we would sound terrible in a band setting because it would be all about what can I play and not about, well, what are the other musicians playing and how can I contribute to that? It's a different mindset. So getting back to the triplets, right? That's the idea, is to throw in our comping. So if you notice what I just did, I just moved it over a triplet, okay? And the bass drum ended up being on the downbeat, okay? That's a Philly Joe thing, a Philly Joe Jones thing, right? So the snare drum note actually ended up on the second note of the triplet. So it just got moved, right, over 1/8 note. Okay, so instead of, it ended up being, let me do that lower bear, which leads me into my next thing. Here we go. Next triplet pattern, right? We are going to put our bass drums on beat 1. On all downbeats, okay? And the rest of the triplets are going to get filled with our snare drum. That's the next figure we're doing, okay? So that's all you have to know, is all the bass drums are on all the downbeats. And you just fill in the triplets. Fill in the triplets with your snare drum, right? And you can mess around with this a lot, just like the last thing. So see what I just did? I just added the other figure in relation to the second figure we just did, right? So I added the first and second together. So now, now we have a lot more jazz vocabulary to play with, in addition to what we already have. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So now I have a lot more to play with. Okay, so it opens up my comping quite a bit, and it opens up my musicality quite a bit, and that's the thing we want. We want to add to our vocabulary so we can have some things to say, because these are just words right now. You know, just playing it like this. You know, that's like a few words, but we're not using it in a sentence. The sentence would be this. Right, the words are in addition to what the context is talking about, right? So it's the same with music. So, you know, and I keep saying that music is a language, jazz is a language, right? So now, again, you drill it, right? If you're, you know, if you're having trouble playing that figure, you just drill it for a while. Or you can play it with chord notes, you know, if you're starting out. You know, think of it as a waltz, right? Which basically it is. Okay. And if you can't, you know, like I said, if you can't put the hi-hat in, take it out. Right, so you drill it first so that you have it, and then you can use it. That's basically how this works. On to the next figure. Okay, so now we're going to get into Cornrow Triplets. Okay, so Cornrow Triplets is basically every other triplet, right? So if I were starting the beat 1, basically I'm playing 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. You hear it? I'll play it with chord notes. I mean, you've heard every jazz drummer do that. You've heard it. I mean, you know, it's all over the place. So, again, you drill it. Right? And then you can start messing, you know, if you wanted, you can start messing around with your bass drum too. Stuff like that. All right. Right. Sorry, my hi-hat totally got away from me. And it messed me up. Messed me up a little bit. So, you know, these are just some of the things you can do that will add to your vocabulary, right? So let's start putting all this together in relation or addition to the triplets too as well. No, I wouldn't play that busy usually unless the band is kicking. But look at that. I have a lot of vocabulary to play with. Sounds pretty cool, right? Yeah, that I dig, okay? Because it sounds like the drummers I've heard. And that's what excites me. Okay, now we're going to skip a beat a little bit, right? So instead of we're going to do the Cornrow Triplet thing again, except it will start on the second note of the triplet. So instead of the downbeat, we're going to start on the second note of the triplet. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Okay? How you count that is 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So what's happening is on beat 1, it's on the second note of the triplet. 1 triplet. On beat 2, it's on the downbeat and the third note of the triplet. Right? 2 triplet. Okay, so if you combine beats 1 and 2 together, you get 1 triplet, 2 triplet, and then you just repeat the cycle for the next 2 beats, and this is what you get. So again, if you're having trouble, play quarter notes. And take your hi-hat out if you need to. Sounds pretty cool, right? Okay, so here we go. Here's another pattern that I really like. Now full-on triplets with our bass drum and snare drum. If you start with your bass drum, right, and we're just going to literally do snare, bass, snare, bass, snare, snare, bass in triplets. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, right? So this is what it would sound like. Okay, that's a little tricky, okay, because, you know, it can feel a little lopsided. Right? So again, if you're having trouble, right, play quarter notes. And drill it for a while. Now, in order to have these things, you got to drill it. You got to put it into your playing a bit. And that's, it can get a little daunting, right? But that's okay. The more you work on these things, the cleaner they will get, and the better they'll sound, and the better you'll sound. You know, then there's nothing for free here. You know, you have to put the work in, unfortunately. So I'm not trying to burst anyone's bubble, but that's the thing. You have to put in the work. Okay, so that's the pattern. Okay, now let's see what we can do with all that. All right, so now we're adding another member or word to the sentence. So let's see what happens with all that. So, at a tempo like that, I'm not going to go. Now, I've heard other drummers do it. I'm not particularly comfortable with that tempo. I would, me personally, okay, this is the way I like it. All right, I like to do it at slower tempos. You know, for some reason, it does something for me. At a fast tempo, I don't really like it. I just don't, you know, it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't sound good to me. You know, other drummers have played it at a faster tempo, and it sounds good. I don't like to, but that's just me. All right, so please, you know, do your thing. Now we're going to reverse it, okay? We're going to put the bass drum first. That one I like a lot. That sounds good to me at a faster tempo. So that's I can break it up a little bit. So anyway, so again, you drill it. All right. And then you put it into play. Boom. So that sounds pretty good to me. I like that a lot. Okay, so to further add to our vocabulary, let's get away from triplets a little bit, and let's get into some consecutive eighths. Okay. Now I might have explained a little bit of this in the last few master classes. However, I'm just gonna, you know, if I'm repeating myself, that's okay. So let's take some patterns that we've heard jazz drummers do, okay, and we're just gonna drill it. So the first rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now, usually, right, we can play it on our snare drum. You can actually play this just to drill it, right? By the way, everything takes drilling, just so you know. To drill it, right, you could do it every bar. And if you wanted to play it at a slower tempo to get your bass drum in, you can do that too. You know, just to exercise your foot a little bit. So also, one of the ways you can utilize this is you can start substituting a bass drum, okay, in one of those figures, let's say the last note of the consecutive eighths, right? Instead of you could put a bass drum at the end. That's pretty hip. It sounds really cool at faster tempos when you kind of just slide it in places. It sounds really cool, like really cool. So that's one of the ways you can utilize it. Okay, is 3 snares and a bass drum, right? So the and of 2, we get the bass drum. 1 and 2 and. Okay, that's really cool. I really like that, to be honest. I mean, that just it does something for me. I don't know what it is, but I hear other jazz drummers do it, and I go, that's what I want. So I take it and I drill it. Now, mind you, I did this over a number of years ago, but still, it's good to go back and just work this stuff because, you have to keep your machine oiled, right? So now let's move it over about to the next beat. So instead of 1 and 2 and, right, we're gonna put it on beat 2. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Right? So it'll sound like this. Right? So we're just moving it over that whole thing a beat. Okay. So it'll be on beats 2 and 3, right? 1, 2, and 3, and 4, right? All right. So when you're done drilling it, throw in a bass drum at the end if you'd like. You can even, speaking of bass drums, you can put it on the downbeat of the first figure, right? Right? Or you can put the bass drum dead smack on the second note, right, of beat 2. And this goes for any one of them. I mean, you can do, that kind of combination, stuff that you've heard the jazz drummers do. I mean, these are slick. So here's what it sounds like in the comping. Now, again, I'm playing a lot of notes, but that's okay. I'm kind of just, I'm playing by myself here. So, I got to entertain myself somehow. But again, these are just words we can choose depending on what the music is telling us to play, right? So what's funny is improvising. We improvise every day in conversation, and we don't even realize it. When I tell people, I'm like, you don't plan on what you're going to say all the time. From day to day is different. You might strike up a conversation with someone down the street you don't even know, and then you didn't know that was going to happen, and you didn't know what you were going to talk about, but it just happened. Well, it's the same thing when you're playing music. It's the same. The principle is still the same, right? So we have some of these, words, right? Well, how do we use them? Well, we can use them sparingly. That's kind of like saying, okay, right. Oh, that's cool. So it's kind of like that. Or you contribute a little more, like, oh, that's funny. You remind me of that because I was watching that show, right? That's the same show. And then you let the other person talking, and then you contribute a little more. So depending on what, they're saying, and, and also depending on your personality, and you make choices right then and there. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's a language. And we want to listen. We want to be more listeners instead of talking all the time, right? So anyway, getting back to other vocabulary to use. All right. Now we can move the figure over another another beat, right? So it'll start on 3. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So again, you drill it like everything. Everything we have, you drill, okay? And then you can, put your bass drums in. Or you can put your bass drum anywhere else if you want. So now I'm going to comp a little bit, and we'll see what we have with all the words we've added so far. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I didn't really use this because I didn't really feel it was necessary. So, I also have no musicians playing here, so it doesn't really matter. So, but I did use the Cornrow Triplets. Right, that's cool. If I was at a slower tempo, I might use those triplet alternating. That was a slower tempo. So let's see what happens. Sorry, my right hand just totally twitched and it messed me up here. Which means I need to eat something. So, okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so right there. So look at that. There's a lot of vocabulary we can play with. Right? I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, that sounds like a jazz drummer to me. And that should be exciting to us. It really should. And that's, it's funny. I have a lot of students that come to me and say, I don't know where to start. And it's funny, there's so much information out there, yet curating it, people have no idea. See, I come from before the internet, right? So I come from all that, the teaching, that we had to drill. And it just seemed easier before that, and no one really knew how to start, these days at least. So, jazz drumming, believe it or not, you got to start at the beginning. Okay, it's good to know all this, to try all this cool stuff. But if you don't have the beginning, right, the feel, right? If you don't have that, that pulse, that chord note thing, all this, wanting to be Elvin Jones and Jeff Tain Watts and, Roy Haynes, all that, Yeah, and none of that's going to help you. You can't start from that. You can't start from the modern stuff, and then you just can't. You could try, but I've never seen that successful. I think I've said this before. All the great jazz drummers we know understand way back, right? They understand. Because if you go back, you understand. Oh, that's the music, and you'd be right. And even in modern stuff, there's still that swing. Even in what's that Jeff Tain record? Bartok, right? The first one, JC is the man, right? So it still swings like a badass. It still swings, and it's one of my favorite records to this day. And he did some weird stuff like in the middle, like he goes to 7/8, which is really cool. They just switch it up out of nowhere, but I like it. I like it a lot. But again, it's still swinging, and that's what just. It won't change. Jazz will never change with that. It'll evolve like it's supposed to, right? All music is supposed to evolve. That's why whenever I hear musicians say, why isn't anyone sounding like music the way it was supposed to be back then, in the old days? I'm like, oh, okay. You just haven't gotten past that. Now, of course, some of that may be true. Some of the music way back when was great, which it is. But if you did a lot, your due diligence in digging, you'll find a lot of music today that is really great in comparison to the older stuff. So if you've done your homework, you're not going to be disappointed, all right? Because, it drives me nuts when people do that. We as educators and gigging drummers, we have to keep up. We must. It's just, we can't get stuck in a hole, or else you're a terrible educator and a terrible musician. So that's why with jazz or any music for that matter, it's good to know the starting point, right, of that music and all the subgenres of it, so you can play it. Bossa Nova came right out of jazz, right? Because it's got that feel, right? Because if I sit there and think about that, it won't take long until I basically make this connection. Bossa Nova is just a chilled out straight jazz, right? You hear it? Swinging. See, it's all connected. Same thing with rock, and let's get into this because this is huge. A lot of people say, well, how did rock and roll come from jazz? Well, let's see. Ready? Let's do a little experiment. So, right now, I'm just doing a simple swing, right? Okay. Watch how my comping evolves. Okay, now I'm going to go more into a structured thing. Okay, here we go. You hear it? Now, what happens if I straighten it out? Look at that. I mean, all I did was go from to, right? Straighten it out. That's it. That's all that those drummers did. That's it. It still came from this. Okay. And that's the thing that we have to understand is that feel, right, was prominent or prominent back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then 60s is when the rock and roll really started to creep in, which is great because rock and roll is awesome. Okay, anyway, let's get back to the figures, okay? All right, so now that we have other vocabulary to play with, right? The eighth notes, since I got the whole styles thing out of the way. We covered consecutive eighths. Now I want to cover some other consecutive eighths. So here's some other words we can play with, right? Let's take this rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so let's take that rhythm and drill it. Great. So now what are you going to do with it? Well, we can put some other bass drums somewhere. Right, we can put a bass drum dead smack in the middle, right? Still the same pattern. How about on the beginning? Yeah. Okay, now let's see it in some comping. Here we go. Let's put some words together. Okay, look at that. So let's say we speed it up. Can it still work? Let's find out. Seems to work to me. I mean, that's pretty hip. Even in the really fast tempos, they're straight. You're just gonna have to like figure out how to place them. You know, usually in that tempo. Putting the bass drum on the third note sounds right. Okay. I'm sorry, I backtrack a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry. So for this one, right? That's that at a fast drum could sound really cool. So right there. Now, not all of these are going to swing. Not all of these are going to work. But it's your job to find out which ones that do at certain tempos, as you can tell probably already. It depends on the music, on the feel. You'll be able to tell right away, well, maybe that won't work. So you don't try it. The way the time to try it is in your practice, and that's okay. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay, here's another one. Okay, here's another figure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so in succession, right? If we were to keep it going, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, let's see what happens. Now, I don't know if you can tell. I kind of can, or maybe I'm stupid, but certain figures change my ride cymbal a little bit. Like if I'm drilling it, I'll notice that like that particular pattern makes my ride cymbal a little sharper than usual. That whole figure. As opposed to, right, spreading out the ride cymbal. So just so you know, some of these are they might have the potential to change your ride. But, that's what I think. Maybe you guys hear different. Maybe you're like, well, no, that doesn't change it at all. That's how you've been playing it. You could be right. This whole thing is a work in progress, I'm telling you. It's just music, that's all, and it's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Here we go. So let's see, what can we do with that pattern after we've drilled it? Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can add some bass drums, right? I mean, sky's the limit, right? I mean, whatever sounds hip to you on these, go ahead and play it. So now let's throw it in some comping. I'm thinking too hard. That's what it is. Let me try it again. Here we go. First time for everything. Look at that. Okay. Again, this gives you a lot more to play with. Now, that's very busy. Okay. Depending on the solo, I might space things out. But again, I mean, you can use these anywhere you want as long as it's is an addition and contribution to the solos or the melody for that matter. So that's the thing. all these words are great, but you ever talk to someone who just will cut you off and just keep talking? Blah, 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 blah. Like they just keep going and 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 going, and you're like, I can't say anything. That's a drag. And when you try to, but it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, especially this is the equivalent of that on drums. And it's just really stupid. Now, I've heard that, something like that, but when the band was rocking and the soloist was, and it's like, well, okay, but it fit, but it sounds stupid by itself, doesn't it? Right? But in context, it's awesome. And when it fits, it's great. I've heard some stuff like that, right? But, be careful with your comping, right? This is what you don't want to do. That's not having a conversation. That's just talking, and you just want to hear yourself talk. What you want to do is, have an interaction with people, you have something to say, they have something to say, and you're just contributing to what's going on. Whoever the soloist is, maybe the bass player is playing something, you're like, oh, that's cool, let me get on that a little bit, and it fits with what the soloist is doing. So, we want to use our ears so that when we have words to say, kind of go, oh, let me slide that in, and it sounds hip and it sounds cool. I'm telling you, nothing is better than a drummer that listens and contributes to what's going on, the cause, right? Or, what's going on. And, I'd rather, hear that than just some guy that wants to hear himself play and, it's just terrible. And, that reminds me of the triplet guy. I can't even do it. And it's all he did. I don't know. I could probably find it again, but it just made me laugh. I was like, that's it? That's all you got? Now, that was only for a few minutes, I think, but I don't really remember. This was like 2-3 weeks ago. But again, we want to sound musical. We don't want to be the center of attention. And if you have that, you got to curb that a little bit. Okay, let's do one more figure, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so here's the next figure. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and. So in succession, it's 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and. All right, so let's drill it. Now, if you skip that part, if you skip the drilling, I promise you, and I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm just saying like it is, okay? So this is safe, okay? What I'm saying is safe. If you skip the drills, you will not retain any vocabulary in here, and you won't have anything to play out there and contribute. So you must drill these patterns into your playing. It doesn't just appear there out of nowhere unless you've been working on it. Then it does. Okay. Don't be afraid to do that, and don't be egotistical enough to you know, what am I trying to say? Don't be egotistical to the point where you rip yourself off from gaining this particular vocabulary, because that's what will happen if you say, I don't need to do that. Yes, you do. Every single jazz drummer needs to do that because it's in the music. And you know what? If we don't have it, we don't have it. Now, you can hear it once or twice and maybe play it, but over time you'll forget it. That's why it's important to drill in the practice room. So do yourself a favor. Don't skip steps. Don't do that. Just go ahead and work on this. So here we go, drilling. Okay, so let's put a couple bass drums in, right? I like that, right? Where else can I put a bass drum? Let's find out. Okay, look at that, right? So you can put it on the end of 4 as well. All right, not just beat 2, but the end of 4. You can do that too. So, play with some of these figures. These are only a few I've given you. Let's see what happens in the music when I throw it in. So look at that. There's so many things that we've worked on today that, if I tried to throw it all in, it would be a mess. But when you do it sparingly, it actually sounds really good. And, that's how you develop a musical vocabulary, is you sit there and you drill. It's not that difficult. And don't let it be difficult either. That's the thing. It should be slow movements. You should be okay. Here's one more thing I'm going to leave you guys with. You should be okay with doing stuff like this. You should be okay with that. All right? And there's a reason for that. Mainly because, that's how this stuff is going to get into your head. All right? Playing slow. Actually playing multiple tempos. Everything from slow to fast. As you've seen. And that's, especially in this genre, that's important. So anyway, I'm going to leave this with you guys. Because, we're basically done with the figures here. There's more, but I can't teach you everything in one masterclass, okay? There's a lot to this. Some of my students are still, figuring out all kinds of other figures, syncopated figures and other things that they hear other drummers do, and they put it into their playing. And that's what we want to do, okay? So I had a blast today. I hope you guys had a blast too, because this stuff it's fun. And don't let it be a burden. Just, if you play the drills, or if you drill it, right, drill the figures into your playing, you'll enjoy it. Like just playing that. That just feels good. But it feels even better when you can play it with guys and throw it in, right? I love that. I love that a lot. So anyway, please do the work. You will be better for it. I promise. I'm telling you, this is how the guys get it. This is, Elvin, Tane, Roy Haynes, Jack DeJohnette, Philly Joe, Jimmy Cobb, all these guys, they had to sit there in their practice rooms and work on this stuff. So why do we think that we shouldn't, or we don't have to? So anyway, have fun, guys, and learn this stuff. Go play with people. If you want to study with me, it's available. So anyway, see you guys next time for the next masterclass.